So why do some design sprints feel amazing while others can feel like they fell flat? You planned all the right activities, right? Well, maybe you just didn't have the basics covered. Well, I'm Erin Essex, a former psych major. It's a weird way to say that, and current designer, UX designer at YouTube/Google. And I have done a lot of design sprints over my career. But quickly, if you're not familiar with a design sprint, essentially it is where you are figuring out what you're going to try to solve at the beginning of the week, doing a series of activities, and then by the end of the week, you have something that you've built and tested and learned from. So this video is not for design sprint activities themselves. This is more if you've been to a design sprint and something just felt a little off about it. So maybe all the activities were picked out perfectly, but the design sprint still feels like it's missing something, right? Maybe a foundational thing or just something that makes the design sprint special. It makes me think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah, that one that you covered in Psych 101, where you can't really get to the best moment, the self-actualization, until the foundational needs are met. To illustrate this, I have created the Design Sprint Hosting Hierarchy of Needs. So let's break that down. First up, there's comfort needs. You really need to have this foundational piece in there. And this is just basics, like having water in the room, maybe some cups for said water. Is the temperature appropriate? Are you sweating? Are you freezing? That's not gonna work. And providing directions to the bathroom. You may think that these things are not that important, but these distractions can pull people's focus away from the sprint or actually pull them out of the room, which as a host can be very disruptive. For example, there was a sprint that I was running in Europe and, they don't usually run the air conditioning sometimes, which is fine for them, but for US folks it can be really distracting. So I had to figure out how to regulate the temperature in the room, opening doors, getting fans, that kind of thing, so that we could continue the sprint as planned. Another tip is I like to put snacks in the room, and I'm not just talking about basic granola bars, which is great, but not everybody can have that. So you want to have a variety of different kinds of snacks, maybe fresh fruit, so that people can also not have the distraction of hunger, if that makes sense. And then also, ask about any dietary restrictions up front if you haven't done so already. The next level up is communication. This is really critical. People want to know what's happening at what time, how should I best prepare, what's going to happen next, is there lunch plans, dinner plans, any of that kind of stuff. This is especially important if you have any participants that have anxiety or masked anxiety. And this just really helps them anticipate what's happening that day and setting expectations. This can help people show up ready to go, ready to contribute, and make for a very smooth day. Oh, and if there's ever a change in the schedule, let people know as soon as possible. I'm sure you have some kind of message group or email thread, that kind of thing. The example I'll give here is a few days before the sprint, or as early as you can possibly provide it, you want to provide a detailed schedule and send it to each person individually as well as in the group. And I do this so that people feel more included and can give me direct feedback if they have some kind of conflict or something they want to add to the schedule. I've had people tell me that this makes them feel a lot calmer coming into the sprint, and it really makes a huge difference. Next up is belonging needs, and I feel like this one is really critical. Consider introducing yourself as the host to each person beforehand. You can actually do it when you send out that agenda that I just mentioned. But this is an opportunity for you to introduce yourself, especially if they don't know you, in an individual message or call. A quick message or chat can really help break the ice, and trust me, a little effort goes a really long way here. During the sprint, I also like to provide little fidget toys or things that people can do with their hands. And this is primarily because during a sprint, we don't really allow phones or computers. And so giving them a little thing to do with their hands can often help soothe people or make them communicate a little bit better. Then lastly, during the sprint, icebreakers can be super cringe. So maybe figure out a more fun way to having people introduce themselves. If it's a remote sprint, maybe have them pick up an object near their desk, I don't know why these are here, to introduce themselves and break the ice in that way. In person, you can do fun little activities. I don't want to say games because games can be super cringe too. But just a more creative way to break the ice can sometimes be a fun way to create belonging. Okay, next up is fun needs. Like, you've picked out all your activities in here, and some of these activities can be fun, but it can also create a lot of, challenging conversations with your group. So I like to break up sprints with maybe little video breaks, maybe a quick game or a little lighthearted contest. During one of our sprints, we actually did Leadership Jeopardy, where one of the people on the leadership team had to answer some fun questions about themselves or the team, and people got to participate by choosing which question they would have to ask and answer. Yeah. Another way is, for example, when I worked at Shutterstock, we had one of our sprints wrap day one by having a 2 truths and a lie kind of activity, which is a great way to learn about people as well. It can be hilarious, creative, but overall a great way to have people engage and have fun. The key is creating moments that people will remember and having them walk away saying, that was actually fun. And finally, the top of the pyramid, the self-fulfillment area here. I think it's good to just have some kind of surprise during your sprint. Maybe it's a special guest speaker, maybe it's a special snack, maybe it's a visit from someone in leadership, can even be pre-taped if you can't get them live, but this can be a good way for people to feel really valued and special as part of this sprint. The sprint I recently attended in Chile did this really well in that they kind of had us all have a costume. Don't worry, it was just a cape, nothing too personal. And then we all went in our costume to a themed restaurant, as you can see here, and that kind of tied into the theme of the sprint as well. This was a just fun little surprise that we had. It made the sprint super memorable, and it had us bond a lot better. Oh, and don't forget to follow up with a thank you message afterwards, or if you have any kind of peer bonus or bonusly program at your company, sending people a little thank you can also be a great thing to do as a host to make people feel that their work was valued. Now, before I wrap up, I do have 2 notes that I want to share with you. One, this video was inspired by an amazing creator called Around 8 on TikTok who did the same kind of approach for party planning. So that's kind of cool. Now, the other thing that I want to acknowledge is while many of us might have learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs in Psych 101, I don't think we ever really learned where he took this inspiration from. And that is from the Blackfoot Nation. He spent a lot of time with them and unfortunately never credited them with establishing this model to begin with. The Blackfoot Nation's concept of this is actually very interesting. I'll link some resources below. So next time you're planning a design sprint, you've got all your activities planned, maybe take some time to think about this kind of hierarchy of needs for design sprints so that you can have the best sprint possible. Check that your foundational needs are covered, and you may be surprised at how much more impactful your design sprints can be because of these techniques. All right, I'm Erin. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. If you did, let me know what you liked. Did I miss something? Did something feel off? I'd like to hear about that too. Thanks for watching.